Welcome to Storytime from the Milledgeville Public Library of Illinois. The story we have for you today comes from the area now known as the United States, and more specifically, the area now known as Texas. This is the story of a flower. It's called the bluebonnet, and it looks something like this right here. It's a very pretty flower, isn't it? So, that is a bluebonnet flower, and this is the legend of how that flower came to be. Once, long ago, the people, the Comanche, were having a great deal of difficulty. The year before had been very dry, and not many things had grown, and the winter had been cold and harsh with deep snows, and now the new year had begun, and there was not rain. There was no rain. There had been no rain for so many seasons that the famine had become quite strong, and famines are always the hardest on the very old and the very young. So for 3 days, the people had been dancing and singing to gain the Great Spirit's attention so that the shaman could go up the hill and talk to them and find out what they needed to do to bring back the rain and to make the land live again. While sitting watching the dancers, sitting all by herself, was a young girl. Now this girl was called She Who Is Alone. You see, her father and her mother had both died in the famine, and her grandmother and her grandfather had died so long ago that she did not remember them. It was the people who had come around her and helped to take care of her and helped to raise her after her parents died. And she who is alone had but one thing in the whole world that was hers. It was a doll. It was a doll that looked like a warrior. The buckskin leggings were beaded and fringed. The belt was made of bone. The face, the eyes, and the nose and the mouth were all drawn on with the juice of berries, and in the doll's hair were several feathers from the blue bird who cries, "Jay, Jay, Jay." She who is alone sat and she talked to her doll, and she told the doll all about the famine that had happened and how the dancers were dancing to get the Great Spirit's attention. And there was the shaman, and he was going up the hill to talk to the Great Spirits and to find out what the people would need to do to bring back the rain and to make the land live again. Well, the people waited. And eventually the runner came back from the edge of the village, and he said, "The shaman is coming! The shaman is coming back from the hill!" And everyone gathered in the center of the camp to hear what the shaman would say. And what the shaman said was, "The Great Spirits are not pleased. You see, they say the people have become selfish. They have taken from the land and they have not given back. And it has been far too long. What the people must do, we must make a burnt offering of the most precious possession among us. And we must burn that thing in the fire. And when the fire has cooled, we must scatter the ashes to the home of the winds, to the north and the south and the east and the west. And when that has been done, then the Great Spirits will be appeased and they will bring back the rain." Well, all of the people sang a song and danced some more to thank the Great Spirits for their guidance. And when they were done, they all went back to their teepees. And as they went, you could hear the murmuring amongst the people. And if you got close to this woman, you would hear her say, "I am certain the Great Spirits do not want my beautiful new blanket. That cannot be what they want." Or this warrior saying, "I am certain the Great Spirits do not want my brand new bow. That cannot be what they want." She who is alone did not say much, for she knew in her heart what needed to be done. Her most prized possession in the whole world was her warrior doll. It reminded her of her mother and her father who had died, and her grandmother and her grandfather. Even though she didn't really remember them, they were still there when she looked at her doll. But she knew that it was the doll that the great spirits wanted. And so as everyone went to the teepees and went to sleep, she who was alone lay in the teepee that she shared with so many others, and she waited. And she waited until everyone else in the teepee was asleep. And then she went to the fire, and she found a stick that was still glowing, and she took it with her, and she took her warrior doll, and she slipped out of the teepee. And she went up on the hill, and she gathered together a bunch of small sticks, and she used that fire stick, and she started a small fire. And she held her warrior doll close, and she thought of her mother, and she thought of her father, and her grandmother, and her grandfather, and before she could stop herself, she threw the doll into the fire. And the fire blazed up brightly and burned strong, and the doll turned to ash, and the fire died down. And when it was cool enough, she who was alone reached into the fire, and she took the ashes, and she scattered them to the home of the winds, to the north and the south and the east and the west. And when that was done, she was so tired that she lay down right there on the top of the hill, and she fell asleep. Well, in the morning, when the people came out of their teepees, they were very surprised, for what was in front of them was fields of beautiful flowers that looked something like this. Beautiful flowers, all of them the color of the blue feathers from the head of that warrior doll, the blue feathers of the bird that cries, J, J, J. And they went up to the top of the hill, and they stared at the flowers spread below them, spread to the north and the south and the east and the west, everywhere that she who is alone had thrown the ashes of her beloved warrior doll. And they thought to themselves, this surely is the great spirits telling us that this wonderful gift was enough. And sure enough, the rain began to fall, and the land began to come alive again. And from that day on, she who is alone had a new name. They called her She Who Greatly Loves Her People. And from that day to this, every spring in the land that we now call Texas, the great spirits send many, many of those beautiful blue flowers to remember and to honor the young girl who gave everything that she had for the love of her people. And that is the legend of the blue bonnet from the Comanche people in what is now known as Texas. We hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will join us again on Friday at 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time, when we'll have another story for you here from the Milledgeville Public Library of Illinois Facebook page. Have a great day. Bye.